She thought she had found the love of her life, a man who promised forever, who stood before her and said, "I do." But just weeks later, he would disappear, along with every dollar she had worked her entire life to save. Her name was Rachel Carter, a 34-year-old nurse from Nashville, Tennessee. She was hardworking, compassionate, and fiercely independent. After years of putting her career first, Rachel finally felt ready to find someone to share her life with. That someone came in the form of David Lawson. They met on a dating app. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to know exactly how to make her feel seen. Rachel described him to friends as everything she'd been waiting for. David moved fast. Within weeks, he was taking Rachel on lavish dates, fancy restaurants, weekend getaways, thoughtful gifts. He said he was a successful investor, and his lifestyle seemed to back it up. Why waste time, Rachel? Life's too short not to go after what you want. And what exactly do you want, David? You. A life with you. Just 3 months into dating, David proposed during a romantic trip to Charleston. Rachel's friends were surprised, even a little concerned about how quickly things were moving. But Rachel was convinced she had finally found the one. They were married in a quiet ceremony 6 weeks later. Close friends, a few family members, and a smiling bride who believed this was the happiest day of her life. But hidden beneath David's perfect smile was a plan she never imagined. It started subtly. David suggested merging their finances. He said it would make things easier now that they were a team. He encouraged Rachel to invest in his latest business venture, promising massive returns. Rachel, in love and newly married, trusted him. She transferred nearly everything she had into a shared account, savings she'd built over 10 years of hard work. Then came the excuses. David said he needed to travel for work. He became more secretive. He guarded his phone. He gave vague answers when asked where he was going. And when Rachel's friends raised concerns, David always had a way of charming them back into silence. Then, one Monday morning, Rachel woke up alone. David was gone. His clothes, his briefcase, his phone, all gone. At first, she thought he had an early meeting, but by noon, he still hadn't called. By evening, her messages were still unread. Calls went straight to voicemail. She called his office. No answer. She called the hotel he claimed he'd be staying at. No record of a reservation. With trembling hands, she opened her banking app. Her account balance, $0. David Lawson had disappeared, and so had every last cent of her savings. Rachel had been conned by her own husband. But who exactly was David Lawson, and how many other women had fallen into his trap? What Rachel would soon uncover would send chills down her spine. Rachel sat frozen in front of her laptop, staring at the empty bank account. Her chest tightened as reality sank in. David wasn't just gone. He had taken everything. She called the police, her voice shaking as she explained what had happened. The officer on the other end was calm but direct. "Ma'am, you need to come down to the station. We need to file a report. And you need to bring every piece of information you have on this man." At the station, detectives listened carefully as Rachel told her story. When they asked for David's driver's license, passport, or any proof of identity, Rachel froze. She didn't have any. Everything she knew about him came only from what he told her. The detective's expression hardened. "Rachel, I don't think David Lawson is his real name." A sinking feeling washed over her. Had she married a man who never even existed? Detectives began digging into every detail Rachel provided. Phone numbers, email addresses, bank account records. Within days, the truth began to unravel. David Lawson didn't exist. The name, the business, the glamorous backstory, it was all fake. His real name was Michael James Rowe, a career con artist with warrants in 3 states. He had perfected the art of targeting successful women, sweeping them off their feet, marrying them quickly, and draining their bank accounts dry. Rachel wasn't his first victim, and she wouldn't be his last. One of the detectives pulled out a folder filled with photos. "Is this your husband?" Rachel's breath caught in her throat. It was David or Michael posing with other women. Smiling, charming, the same way he had smiled at her. The detective nodded grimly. These women, they thought they married him too. As Rachel flipped through the photos, her anger turned to horror. 2 of the women in those pictures had gone missing. Detectives feared Rachel's story wasn't just about fraud. Michael might be far more dangerous than anyone realized. But as the investigation intensified, one thing became clear. Michael Rowe was a ghost. He had no known address, no real job, and dozens of fake identities. Every time he vanished, he left nothing behind, until a chilling discovery changed everything. One victim had managed to record a final phone call with him, and what Michael said on that call would reveal the terrifying lengths he was willing to go to keep his secrets. The recording was short, just over 2 minutes, but every word sent chills through the room as the detective pressed play. Michael's voice was calm, cold, calculated. "You think you can stop me? No one ever stops me. You'll regret crossing me, just like the rest of them did." The woman on the call sounded terrified. Her voice trembled as she begged him to return her money. Michael laughed, a low, menacing laugh. Then he hung up. Detectives now had more than just a scammer on their hands. They were dealing with a man who thrived on control and fear, and who might be capable of far worse than fraud. Rachel's fear turned to determination. She refused to let him get away with it. With the detective's help, she traced every email, every transaction, every phone call. Finally, a break came. A surveillance camera from a small-town gas station in Alabama captured a familiar face. It was Michael buying snacks and fuel, driving a rented black SUV. Detectives moved fast. They tracked the rental company, traced the payment, and discovered the SUV had been dropped off at an airport just hours earlier. Michael was on the move again, but this time they were close. A warrant was issued. The FBI joined the hunt. Airports and bus terminals were alerted. Then, a week later, a tip came in from a hotel clerk in Florida. A man matching Michael's description had just checked in, under yet another fake name. Authorities surrounded the hotel, but when they stormed the room, it was empty. Michael Rowe had vanished again. The only thing left behind was a handwritten note on the nightstand. It read, "You'll never catch me. I'm always one step ahead." But the note wasn't the most disturbing thing. Next to it was a stack of printed wedding announcements, all for women Michael had already lined up as his next victims. He was planning his next con, and somewhere out there, another woman was about to fall for his lies. The discovery of the wedding announcements changed everything. Michael Rowe wasn't just a scammer on the run. He was actively preparing for his next victims. The FBI intensified their manhunt. Agents pieced together his travel history using hotel records, rental car receipts, and surveillance footage. Everywhere he went, he left just enough of a trail to stay ahead, but never enough to get caught, until one careless mistake gave him away. 2 weeks after disappearing from the Florida hotel, Michael used one of his fake identities to book a private yacht charter in Miami. He had no idea the FBI was already monitoring that alias. Agents closed in, watching as Michael boarded the yacht with yet another woman. She had no idea the man she was with was a wanted criminal. The FBI waited. When Michael stepped back onto the dock, agents surrounded him. For the first time in years, Michael Rowe had nowhere to run. He was arrested on charges of fraud, identity theft, and bigamy. As investigators dug deeper, the scale of his crimes stunned even seasoned agents. Over 12 women had been conned out of their savings. 2 had completely vanished after marrying him, cases that remain unsolved to this day. In court, Rachel sat in the front row, watching the man who had ruined her life finally face justice. Michael showed no remorse. He smirked through most of the trial, as if he still believed he was smarter than everyone else in the room. But this time, charm wouldn't save him. He was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. Rachel slowly began rebuilding her life. Though she never recovered her stolen savings, she made it her mission to speak out about financial fraud and romance scams, warning others never to ignore the red flags she once brushed aside. But the story doesn't end there, because even behind bars, Michael Rowe was still scheming. Authorities later discovered that he had been writing letters to women from prison. Letters filled with the same sweet words, the same promises, the same lies. Rachel could only shake her head. Michael may have been locked away, but for men like him, the con never really stops. This was the story of Rachel Carter, a woman who thought she married the love of her life, only to discover she had married a predator. Because sometimes the person who says, "I do," is the one who destroys you the most.